Hello, good people. Welcome to Africa is Us. This is our second episode for 2019, and as promised last week, we're going to be discussing the debate around the separation of white children from black children in a classroom during their first day of grade R. And this picture went viral last week, and it was in a school in the Northwest province. So we're going to be taking a look at that. Stay tuned here to Africa is Us. Now, we all probably saw this photo being circulated last week. By now, it should be pretty famous. As you can see in this picture, on the right-hand side, all of the white kids are sitting at one table and all of the black kids have been placed at a separate table on the left-hand side. Obviously, this was a photo that was sent. The teacher actually sent the photo to the parents to show them what was going on and how the first day of school was progressing. One of the parents obviously took offense to this and posted it on social media, rightly so, to garner the needed attention, and an investigation has since been lodged. Now, what I want to discuss in this episode is not racism. I think we discussed that a lot. What I want to discuss here, and firstly, I just need to say that I don't condone racism in any shape or form. But what does scare me about this incident and other incidences in South Africa that are similar to these is that we quickly jump on the bandwagon of throwing all sorts of accusations when an investigation is clearly underway, and the outcome of that investigation, which will clearly tell us what the explanation of this situation was, hasn't even been heard yet. Now, of course, you have a right to protest. Of course, this picture should have been placed on social media. Of course, this should have been addressed to the principal because this needs to be investigated. But showing up at the school armed to the T, wearing bulletproof vests, screaming obscenities to each other, and in this instance I'm talking about the parents that actually showed up to the school and were allegedly guilty of these types of behaviors. That to me is scary, seeing as we don't even know really what happened yet. So I want us to look at every single scenario. So obviously everything we're going to be discussing now is hypothetical because we have to assume. We don't know all the facts yet, we don't know what the outcome is, so let's assume. So allow me to play devil's advocate here for a moment, will you? And let's go through all of the possible scenarios. Now, the first scenario being, the kids were merely separated because the black and the white kids, or the teacher wanted the black and the white kids to be separate. She wanted all of the white kids at one table and she wanted all of the black kids at the other table. If this was the situation, clear as day, that is what happened. It cannot be condoned in any shape or form. I mean, come on people, really, are we still living in a country where we cannot even appreciate the diversity of our country and integration of our youth so we can live together in a free, open and peaceful society? We are all adults, so as far as I'm concerned, the adults in this country can go ahead calling people monkeys, slaughtering sheep on beaches, yelling profanities at each other. You make your own choices and decisions and you're responsible for the consequences. But these are children who have the right to an extraordinary education. These children have as much right as anybody else in this country and in the world to be treated exactly the same as every other human being. Why should they be sitting at a separate table just because they are black? And why should the other kids be sitting at a separate table just because they are white? They are all children, all of the same age, all there to receive a quality education. Why does this need to happen? Why do we always have to see these examples coming to the forefront? Okay, so that's the one scenario, the one assumption that we could have made. If we make another assumption, for example, let's take a completely different scenario. These kids were, and this was what was actually alleged during the investigation, they were separated because of language barriers. Now, this causes a host of sub-scenarios, if we can put it that way. So let's look at the first one. These kids were separated due to a language barrier. The white kids being put at the one table because they spoke English Afrikaans, and the other kids, the black kids, being put at a separate table because they didn't understand English and Afrikaans. Now, of course, this creates a huge concern for me from the get-go, because what kind of education are these kids going to get if we don't even have classrooms, environments, atmospheres, and teachers that can teach them in their own language and provide them with a quality education? Let's take a different step. These children were separated because the white children in the class only spoke and understood Afrikaans. The black children in the class only spoke and understood English. Again, it brings up a host of scenarios, because if this school is offering English education, they must be some form of a double medium school and therefore prepared to offer English and Afrikaans education. That would mean that there surely is an Afrikaans class and an English class, which puts the school probably also in a difficult situation, because how would it look on social media if you, for the first day, post your 2 grade R classes and the one class is just the black children because they are in the English class, and the one class is just white children because they are in the Afrikaans class? So that would also not have garnered very good social media responses. The second thing that we can take into account here is, are we really saying, honestly and really saying, that the black kids at this table don't speak and understand English, and the white kids at the table honestly cannot speak or understand English? Is that a reasonable assumption to make? Now, of course, you have the right to be educated in the language of your choice, but I'm saying, if this is the argument being made, is it reasonable for us to assume that honestly they were separated because there really and honestly are children in that classroom that do not understand English? Okay, so now you can see how complicated this matter is getting, because again, we're making assumptions. We don't really know what happened that day because the investigation hasn't been finalized. So I'm playing devil's advocate here. I'm giving you a host of hypothetical situations, and we're seeing what should the outcome be if one of these scenarios should be true. The last scenario I want to throw at you is this. What if these kids came into the classroom? Now, let's put ourselves in this situation, right? Go back to when it was your first day at school. You're in grade R. You have now graduated to the big school. It's your first day, you have your uniform on, you have your suitcase with you, your lunch is packed, mommy and daddy, they're standing in front of the school gate taking pictures for the album. You're meeting your teacher for the first time, probably meeting new friends because all of your friends may not be attending the same school that you are. You're nervous, you're scared, it's your first full day maybe away from mommy and daddy. And you're going to meet new people and you're going to learn new things. So along with the excitement, there must also be some form of nerves that come into play. You enter the classroom, you see your new teacher for the first time, and she tells you, okay, class, sit down, or choose a seat and sit down. And you sit where you choose to sit. Just then, a picture is taken. The black kid sitting at one table, white kid sitting at the other table. What should the teacher then have done? Should the teacher have gone to some of the white students and some of the black students and said, please move seats. Please sit at this seat. You please move to that seat. Would that have then been the right thing to do? Of course, we can then also go into the entire argument of why so many years after democracy, do we still find ourselves in a situation where integration is so difficult that even our young ones find it most comfortable to choose to go and sit next to black children, and the white kids choose to go and sit next to the white kids? I mean, that's an entirely different can of worms, and we will dedicate an entire episode to that. But I mean, this is a scenario that you then could argue. If this was the situation, the kids came in, the teacher told the kids to sit down, they chose where they wanted to sit, it ended up like this. Why is the classroom structured in such a way? There's obviously a huge table on the right-hand side of the classroom and one small table on the other side of the classroom. So was the classroom just from the get-go set up to ensure some kind of segregation or to prevent full integration of the class? But yet again, we cannot really pass judgment on that because we see this picture from one angle in the classroom. So what's happening in the back of the classroom? Are there perhaps a bunch of rows of seats in schoolroom style? And this is just the creative nook or the arts and crafts table, which may then also not explain why there is a separate table and a large table on the one side. So here you go. Already again, 3 sub-scenarios to the hypothetical question that we've posted. Now, the purpose in this episode was not to drag on and confuse you by a whole mindset of scenarios. It was to bring the point across that, of course, we should speak up when there are perceived injustices. But can we just wait to pass judgment until we have the full facts of the case and we are able to make an informed and intelligent decision, and from there formulate our own opinions as to how the scenario should have been handled and what if we know exactly what the facts and the circumstances of that case was. I find it reprehensible that we don't even know what the outcome was and parents are going to the school where their kids are at, armed with guns and bulletproof vests, screaming obscenities to each other, protesting, disrupting the school day if we don't even know what the real situation was. So let's just all take a step back, realize our rights to bring injustices to the forefront and to keep on doing that, but to also have enough respect for each other and for every circumstance we enter into to at least be appraised of the full facts of the case before we pass judgment. Okay, see you next time on Africa is Us, and I promise it's going to be a great episode because we are going to be looking at land expropriation and where we are now, as promised in my last episode of 2019. Thanks for your time, see you again soon, ciao.